Good day everyone, so will Kirara replace Kokomi and Collei in Nilou Bloom teams? Well, that's what we'll try and discuss in today's video. So there are two perspectives that are worth considering. What happens in Nilou's single target Bloom teams and what happens in her AoE team. So let's get into the AoE team because I'm sure most people run Nilou Bloom teams mostly for the AoE environments. So basically here, Kokomi is not going to go anywhere. That off-field Hydro, the healing, the 2 units of Hydro from Kokomi's burst, and obviously that she's a Hydro Catalyst, it's just too invaluable. It's just too synergistic in an AoE environment to really replace. So I'd honestly argue that the only character in an AoE, that environment from a meta perspective, that we need to worry about is perhaps Collei, and there are good reasons to think this. So here's the thing, the key with Nilou Bloom teams is always ensuring that you play in such a way such that the Bloom ownership is unambiguous. In other words, that it always falls to your Hydro units. A big part of what Collei enables is obviously the consistent Dendro application. No, it's not the front loading, it's not Collei's elemental burst, contrary to what people believe, but it's that consistency of Dendro application, and that is ultimately what gives you the maximum Dendro core production, and more importantly, consistently procs Nahida's elemental skill. This is why we use Collei. So what does Kirara provide? Well, in the main, because you have a Dendro shield, you now much more easily absorb like some of the little chip damage from the Dendro cores, but ultimately you have a wider margin for error that you're playing with. And I'd assume that for most people, given the fact that Collei is very difficult to play properly, this is going to be a very sigh of like welcome relief. So not only do you have a shield, but you also now have a situation where even if Kokomi is built for EM, you will still be able to heal up the team because you've got like 2 defensive utilities. And the other thing is, because you don't need Collei's elemental application, you can perhaps get away with playing Nahida a bit more on field precisely due to a shield. So this entire idea that Collei stabilizes Nilou Bloom teams with her consistent Dendro application can to an extent be taken over by Kirara crashing into enemies and obviously the occasional burst, but more importantly having that extra room to have Nahida on the field. So this would be the line of thinking. Now, from a speedrunning or meta perspective, you probably still want to stick with Collei, but what I have found is that as your investment levels increase, a good argument can be made to stick to Kirara instead, precisely because the contribution in terms of the damage from Collei is going to start being very, like, it's going to be very diminishing in a certain aspect. So you might even find it from a speedrunning perspective, due to Kirara's additional movement abilities, you might just be able to replace Collei. So that is what the tentative conclusions are looking like. I'm not saying that this is the gospel truth, but currently it does look like she is a good, viable alternative, a much more comfy alternative to Collei. As regards the single target environments, you're not gonna really get away with replacing Kirara here. So I do think that still the traditional Kokomi, Nilou, Nahida and Collei will still be very, very good in single target environments, especially if you can manage your Dendro core production rate. It's only really going to be at the highest investment level. So on my other account, I do play C6 Yellow and C6 Nahida, and I have found that in that specific case, Kirara is so useful because her shield, obviously at C6 Kirara with the key, does not break. So that allows your Nahida and Yellow just to be on field permanently, and that extra front loader damage just wins. But in all other aspects, I don't think it really changes much in a single target environment, except making it a bit more comfortable for your Nahida to be on field and to trigger Yelon or Shinshu's burst. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think, and if you've enjoyed the showcase in the background. Cheers!